Welcome to the Sponsored Rider Club podcast, your guide to motorsports sponsorship. Here's your host, Josh Weesey.
Welcome to this episode of the Sponsored Rider Club podcast, which is powered by 4-Wheel Parts. Today we have Matt Burroughs on the show. He is a senior vice president at Monster Energy and a desert UTV racer. So we dive into his UTV racing career, find out how he got into it, and all the cool stuff he does behind the scenes to promote his sponsors. Today I'm actually at home in my studio releasing this episode. Today is September 7th of 2019. I was supposed to be at Heydays right now with my brother, but we had to make last minute changes, so we didn't end up making it. That kind of sucks, but at least the show is queued up and ready to release in the world. So I'm getting it out there right now. I hope everyone is at Heydays right now having a great time, and I'll see you next year. But first, I have a couple things I want to go through before I get into the show with Matt, and I want to start with 4-Wheel Parts. Now, I found out literally yesterday that 4-Wheel Parts carries Power Stop brakes. I've run Power Stop on my old F-150, and I'm about to be running them on my wife's Expedition too. So I'm pretty excited overall that 4-Wheel Parts even offers Power Stop brakes. Like I wasn't even thinking about that from the get-go. But I Googled it, went to Power Stop's website, and it was like, buy now, 4-Wheel Parts. Like, sweet. So that's awesome. I'm going to get those on order here pretty soon. I'm excited about that. But also, the new XRC Gen 3 winch from Smittybilt was launched earlier this week, and 4-Wheel Parts did an awesome job promoting that launch. It was basically like a simultaneous launch across all their partners and all their different media sites. So I've actually got a video up on my site as well. So if you head over to Instagram, Sponsored Rider Club Podcast, you'll see the video for that. It's a really cool winch. I wouldn't mind having one myself right now, but either way, if you want to find out more about any of that stuff, you can call 1-800-284-9840 or head over to 4wheelparts.com. And I would love to get your feedback about this show. I want to continue to bring amazing guests on the show, continue to be able to produce the show, and for that, I need to have the engagement on Apple Podcasts. So head over to iTunes, or what we call Apple Podcasts now. Leave that rating review. That would be awesome. And then subscribe. That way you don't miss any of our upcoming shows. Now, this show here is also brought to you by a couple of awesome companies. AMSOIL, they provide amazing lubrication products, and they're a company that runs on freedom. You can find out more at amsoil.com/rider. SolderWeld, they produce game-changing metal bonding technology, and they're ready to rescue your race. TopToPodium.com, they're experts in motorsports sponsorship and website creation. Bold Racing, they're a family desert UTV race team. And then Crash Act Industries, they provide human protection and extreme racing products. I also want to shout out some of our other partners: MBRP, HMK USA, Studboy Traction, and High Octane Coffee. And shout out to Jared Heshka over at MBRP. I was supposed to be hanging out with him today at Heydays in his booth, but didn't make it, so he was bummed to hear that too. But thanks for the offer, Jared. Appreciate it. All right, now it's time to get in the show. We're going to cover the High Octane Coffee marketing tune-up with Joe Sylvester in just a minute, and then we'll get in the show.
What's up, everybody? Joe Sylvester here with your High Octane Coffee marketing tune-up of the day. Today I want to talk about a little bit of homework. Doing your homework on a company before you even think about approaching them for a sponsorship. That's a big, big thing. You need to understand the company and a little bit about what they're all about and what their marketing strategies and tactics are before you even approach them. Make sure that they align with what you're doing, and make sure that you're going to be able to bring something to the table for them. Check up on their social media. Look at maybe who else they're sponsoring. See how you fit into the picture, and absolutely use their product. Even if you just try it for the first time, make sure it's something that you believe in, something that you feel confident in endorsing. So definitely, before approaching a company, do your homework, research that company, and learn as much as you possibly can about them so you can have an intelligent conversation with them when you finally do reach that marketing executive to talk to them about sponsoring your race program.
Now, this is a cool one here. So you are one of the leaders at Monster Energy, but what we're focused on today is your racing program. You as a racer, what you do to meet your sponsors' needs. So we got tons of good stuff. We've had some good time in the pre-interview to talk about this, but I'm not going to ramble on right now anymore. I'm going to give you an opportunity to tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so no, thanks for having me. Very much appreciate it. So I started racing off-road on motorcycles in the desert here in Southern California. I think my first race, my parents let me race when I was 12, but I've been riding since I was about 4 years old in the desert, which is pretty common here in California. And I raced what they call AMA District 37 as well as Best in the Desert kind of through my mid-30s. I actually was able to get a factory Husqvarna ride towards the end of my career, starting in about 2000. And I stopped racing motorcycles in my mid-30s. Just got to the point where, they say with age comes a cage, and that was really true. It just got really hard for me to race at the level that I was used to racing at, and I had a few good get-offs, and it just really made me kind of think about what I wanted to do in terms of motorsports. So I actually quit racing motorcycles, and I started racing bicycles, road bikes, and I did that for about 5 or 6 years, which was fun. I was in fantastic shape, but I was missing the motorsport side of things. So we as a family went and bought at the time, a four-seat UTV, and that was, I think, in 2013 or 2014.
Okay.
We took it out here to Johnson Valley and went down my first trail, and couldn't believe what these things would do.
Oh yeah.
And that's really where it started, and started racing. 2015 was our first year racing a UTV.
Awesome. Yeah, they're different animals. I mean, I got into the side-by-sides later on too, once they'd already developed, the sport suspension, and they were really. I didn't have like a Yamaha Rhino or any of the really early models, so I got to hop in, and I was just blown away. I think the first UTV I rode in was a 13 Polaris Razor 4-seater. It was the 900, and that at the time was like the big deal, And I rode in it. I was like, I gotta get one. Like now, I gotta go find one immediately. And I had one for 4 years. I think I had two different ones for 4 years, and they were awesome. I got a Jeep now, which is a whole different level of fun, or a different type of fun. But like, sometimes I miss just going really fast on some trails.
Yeah, it was. I couldn't believe it when I first, like I say, when I first took it out and went down a really good whooped out trail in the desert. It was. I was just amazed at what they would do, and that was back in 13. And
right.
Where they're at now compared to back where they were in 13, it's incredible the progress that we've made in the UTVs. We're now doing. I'm doing near 100 miles an hour in my Can-Am racing in the desert,
Yeah.
and who would have ever thought we would do that?
Yeah, it's absolutely wild. I remember the first time that I took out my Polaris Razor, it was a 2015. I can't remember. I think it was a 2015, and I took it out for the first time with my brother in his ATV, and he was riding behind me, and we had normally ridden together on ATVs, and there was me and then three other full size individuals in the car. And he's like, he comes up, he's just exhausted, just beat, he's, oh God, what are you doing to me? I was like, what do you mean? He's like, I see you all with your arms hanging out the door, sipping on your Mountain Dews, and just cruising. He's like, I'm back here getting my butt kicked. And I'm like, well, I didn't even know. Like, I didn't even know we were going fast. I thought we were just cruising. That's how it is.
Yeah, no, it's and then you can put your stereo in there as well. They're really, really, really versatile cars for sure.
Oh yeah. Well, that's good. So we got a lot to get into here. You already kind of gave us some of your background there, and I just want to kind of dig a little bit deeper. Like, I want to know, like, what even drove you to get into this sport? Like, why did you get back into the race scene? And in 2015, like, why did you choose the UTVs? So let's kind of dig into that for a little bit.
Yeah, I think for me more than anything, the UTVs was I still had the passion to race.
Mm-hmm.
I think growing up in the desert here and starting as early as I did, that passion never went away. It just became once I became a dad, it was more of a safety issue for me. So this was really a way to get back into desert racing. I'd always thought, hey, how cool would it be to go race a trophy truck or, a Class 1 car, but I didn't have $1 million sitting around to go do it. So the UTV market was a way to get into racing and have it be fairly economical. You go down and you buy a car off the dealer showroom floor, and you come and you make some modifications and you go racing. So for me, it was a way to go racing, fairly cheap, although I don't think racing's ever cheap, but it wasn't terribly expensive to go racing, and the racing was and still is, we're going fast. So it's not like we're going out there and, these cars aren't, 40 horsepower anymore. They're, in full race trim, they're, over 200. So, and it's just so competitive. I mean, at almost all the races, we're the biggest class out there, and it's so competitive, and so many guys can win on any given day that it's just a ton of fun. It really is just a ton of fun.
I got a couple of comments here, but first off is a phrase that I picked up on a meme somewhere, and it stuck with me. And I'll ask it to you as a question. Do you know what the best way is to become a millionaire in off-road racing?
Yeah, I would probably sell all your stuff.
You got to start as a billionaire. That's the
best
way to become a millionaire.
Yes, it's not cheap for sure.
But yeah, and I think the way a lot of people get there is sell everything, just like you were saying.
Yeah.
It's funny too, because your trade is finance, right? That's true?
Yes.
Yeah, so
yes. Yes, and it's funny. The way I sneak some things by is I tell my wife, jokingly, that everything we buy or put on the car is for safety. So that's
right. Yeah, we cannot miss the whole safety piece. Yeah, and I had something else that was like amazing that I was gonna say too. Remember, I was like, I have a couple of comments. Well, I got so tied up in the first comment, I forgot what the second comment was. But trust me, it would have been a game changer for you, and for everybody listening right now, absolute game changer. But I forgot it, so too bad. Okay, so I want to know a little bit more about today. Like, what are you working on? What are you excited about? What are you fired up about?
We built a 4-seat Can-Am X3 about a year ago now, and debuted it at Vegas Reno the year before. And it's really just a phenomenal car, and we've worked really hard on it. And we've just had, honestly, some really bad luck racing. At last year's Baja 1000, we were within a minute or two of a podium spot, literally with about 20 miles to go of a 1,000-mile race. And we hit a big rock and tore the front end off the car. And, so we regrouped and fixed the car. And this year's been kind of the same thing. This year's Mint 400, we started way back in the pack. We got a really bad draw, and no one really was paying a lot of attention to us. And going out on lap 3, we were right in a podium spot. I think we were second or third on corrected time, and no one really knew we were there. And we went on lap 3, and I was pushing on the dry lake bed at 100 miles an hour trying to make up time, and we blew a belt and got out, and our belt tool was broken. It killed our race. So fast forward to the Baja 500 this year, late in the race with not much left to go in the race. I think mile 430. Another mistake and broke the car late in the race when we were first or second and third on corrected time. Vegas to Reno this year, same thing. Late in the race, we had a rock break a radiator line. So what am I excited about is we're there in every race, and it's just a matter of time till this thing pops for us because the car is just really beyond any expectation that I had on how good this car could be. It is, and so I just feel like we're going to get on a roll here very soon, and we think that 2020 is going to be a really big year for us. So that I'm excited, the team's excited, and we're ready to go. We think our luck is going to change here.
Oh, perfect. It's crazy how some stuff can take you out of a race. Like, I mean, I've participated in Vegas Reno 3 different times now, and 2 different race teams, and in 2 of the times it was just something kind of silly, a $10 part or the thing that you wouldn't expect to cause the issue. It caused the issue, but I want to go back real quick to your the Las Vegas Reno race. So you said it was a radiator line. Was it like a braided aluminum line, or was it a?
No. So it's just one of the hoses that comes right off the water pump and goes to the turbo. But it's up. It's pretty high in the motor.
Yeah.
So for a rock to get up there and nick it was just a fluke. Yeah. Complete fluke deal. I've raced the Can-Am now for 3 seasons and never had this issue. And we still kind of scratch our heads a little bit on how a rock got up there, but it obviously did and cut it. So
right.
Just more than anything, I was bummed for myself, of course. But more than anything, I was bummed for the team because the guys work so hard, and I really want to give them that podium. It's really important. I got to get a podium for these guys.
Mm-hmm. That's a really important trait. That for a racer, or a leader, or a crew chief, or whatever you want to call it, when you're in that scenario where you just lost, right? And your race is over. That's tough. And I got to experience that this last time I was with Scanlon Motorsports Group. So Craig Scanlon and them, I mean, they had a rough shot at 80 mile marker 84, so early on in the race. And I remember Craig coming up to me afterwards, who I'm just grateful that I was allowed to tag along, And he comes up to me, he's like, "Hey, I apologize for not giving you the experience that of a full race. I wish you could have been there I wish I could have gotten you to the end." I'm like, "You're apologizing to me? Man, you don't got to apologize for nothing. I'm just happy to be here. I wish I could have helped out. I wish I could have fixed it, or I wish I could have done something different." But that comment stuck with me. I was like, man, that's pretty cool that he cares about his crew and his team, and even me, I'm just tagging along, And he's like, "No, I'm sorry that I let you down." I'm like, man, wow, that's pretty powerful to hear, though.
Yeah, no, and I think, for me personally, every team is different, of course, but for my team, it's 100% volunteers. Mm-hmm. So, these guys are using many times their vacation time to come race with me. And I, for the most part, have had the same crew for the last 4 years, so it's kind of the same group of guys. So we race a lot, and they're sacrificing their time to come be part of the program, and so I absolutely feel bad when we don't perform. I feel bad for the guys because I want them to come out. We've had some success in the past, and we will again, but it's those times in between where I feel bad for the guys because I really want to be successful for them because, I can't do it alone. There's no way I can do it without the support of the team. And I want to give them champagne for sure.
Mm-hmm. When I first asked about the radiator line too, I was actually going to try to sell you some SolderWeld product because if it's like any sort of aluminum repair item, you could fix it. If it's an actual radiator, pop a hole in a radiator, boom, right on the trail, fix it, you're good to go. But you can
just a fluke thing, it happens.
Yep. Yeah, for anybody else who wants to know more, in a little bit, you'll be able to hear that in the commercials because SolderWeld is they're pretty cool stuff. But okay, so what I want to actually do now is just ask you a little bit more about your sponsors, your partners, people that you're working with.
if I can kind of, it'd be great if I could just run through the list and
Yep.
and tell you the companies that we partner with and what we use of their products. That would be awesome.
Perfect.
Obviously our two main sponsors are Monster Energy and Can-Am, and I don't think for your listeners, I don't think I need to explain what either one of them do. But going down the list, and it's a bit of a long list, so bear with me. We use STI chicane tires, and I've been using them starting in 2016. So we're 3 seasons in with them, and the tires are fantastic. We use Boxo tools. Obviously, I think for anybody that's seen their tools, it's just absolutely, I think, every little kid's dream to have a toolbox like that. The organization is incredible. Their foam inserts that they have, and the way the tools fit in there. It's every time you open your toolbox, you get a great feeling. You look up there, and when there's nothing missing, it definitely puts a smile on your face and makes you happy.
Something real quick about Boxo tools. So we talked about that in the pre-interview, and I looked them up because I actually didn't know who Boxo tool was. They have a cool brand. Like, their website is neat. Like, yeah. I don't know how else to describe it. Like, there's a rhinoceros with a crescent wrench and a hammer for a head, but it looks cool. I don't know how that they made that work, but it looks really cool. Like, I want to use these tools so that I can be a better person and be cooler. You know what I mean?
They're really cool guys as well, just really down to earth guys. But their product is incredible. Like I say, when you open their toolboxes and you see the organization, it's fantastic. You just look at it and go, my God, I got to have this toolbox. And it's really helped our team a lot in terms of organization. And when we have to do repairs, at the races, it's made it much, 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 much easier for us.
Okay, hold on a second here now. I'm digging in. And it legit already has the cutouts and everything for the tools?
Oh, yeah.
See, okay, so this is... Sorry, guys, you're going to have to buy this stuff, too. I'm not sponsored by Boxo, but, this is legit. So you order a kit. It comes with, I'm looking at this one. I just picked up a random 195-piece tool set for Tool Trolley. And it's got the toolbox with wheels. It's got, I don't know how many drawers here. Every drawer already has the spaces cut out. Looks like it's in some sort of foam or plastic insert. And then all the tools. This is a dream for me. I mean, I'm going crazy.
No, it is. It is. And when you see it literally in person, you touch it, you just can't believe how nice it is. And it really helps because for us, when we're racing, we're out at a race and car comes in. And in the past, tools would get misplaced and they would end up in one truck or another truck. This way, it has a place to go back to. Each tool has a home that it goes back to. Plus, at the end of the race, we can see what's missing and try to track down that tool. But yeah, if you haven't seen them, really, everybody check it out. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, I'm kind of blown away. And most people don't know this, but my background. The majority of my background has been in manufacturing, and I've done a lot of work with 5S, which is like an organization practice, like a workplace organization practice, and this is right up my alley.
That's really cool.
I'm kind of geeking out over here, but okay, keep going. Boxo.
Okay, so check. So Summers Brothers, we've been using his axles. He's been with me from day one. We use the axles and sway bars front and rear. Another company, the thing you'll hear me repeat on this, and this is kind of a common theme. You'll see that I keep saying this guy's been with me since day one. This guy's been with me since day one. So we use Cognito suspension, A-arms and trailing arms. They've been with me from day one. We've not had a single suspension failure with the Cognito arms in almost 5 years of racing now. Not a single failure. Torco oils and Torco race gas. That's an interesting one for me because I actually Torco was a sponsor of mine back when I was racing motorcycles for Husqvarna. So I've had a relationship with Torco for going on 19 years now. So that's a real special one for me, just because they're good friends of mine, but they're extremely loyal, and their product's fantastic. Their oils are as good as they get, and their race gas is fantastic. We use Baja Designs for all our lights. We've never had a failure, and we do a lot of night racing. Some here in the States, and then obviously in Mexico, we do a lot. And the Baja Designs lights are really second to none. Their products are just incredible. We use rugged radios for all our communications, as well as our fresh air pumper. OMF wheels is another one that I've been with for my entire UTV racing career. Thing that's interesting about OMF is we literally are, even though I've added a few new wheels a year, we're racing on 4 and 5 year old wheels. And they're still good, and they're still running. So, they're definitely a premium wheel, but you're not replacing wheels every year. So OMF is another one that's been with me from day one. Fox shocks as well. We run Evo Tune. The guys at Evo, both Jim and Todd, are just fantastic guys. We're running their Stage 4 RI. The car rips. But they're more than anything, they're just really, really good guys to work with, and they stand behind their products, and anything you need from them. From a customer service standpoint, their company is really on top of things. Off the grid tours. He built the cages for our pre-runners. So if you see our 2 pre-runners that are out there, we have 2 4-seat pre-runners that we run. Off the grid built cages with nice roof racks, and they're quite nice. Definitely for pre-running, that's a really nice cage. Company called Show TD. They do all our media, so all the videos that you see that we put out, and we can talk about that kind of in a bit on what our position is on some of the media stuff. But Show TD does that. Pro Eagle Jacks is another interesting one, because that's just a product that is if you're if you're kind of talking about geeking out, Pro Eagle is another one where that jack is just phenomenal. We had actually the year before we went with Pro Eagle, some guy in San Diego was making custom ones, but they were really not very good quality. They were making a custom jack with wheels, and they really didn't work well. But we were using them because it was the only thing that would get the UTV up in the air. And then lo and behold, the next year Pro Eagle came out, and there's no other jack that'll work. The Pro Eagle jacks just work. They're light for the guys to be able to grab and get the car up in the air. So it's another one that's really really you can geek out over. We use iBox springs on all our cars, PRP seats and harnesses and window nets. Their seats, their harnesses and window nets are SFI approved for racing, so it's kind of a one-stop shop for us on seats and harnesses. They make some beautiful custom seat covers that we put the Monterey Energy logo in, and those guys are just fantastic to deal with. Sparks makes we have a custom exhaust on the car, and Sparks makes those for us. We've used factory UTV skid plates. Again, they've been with us since day one. Never an issue. We're on year 3 of running or year 2 running the same skid plate with not an issue. We use Rockbox mud guards. We have custom brake lines made from Streamline. So Streamline, we have custom lengths. They're actually located here in Southern California, and so they'll make kind of any brake line length color that you want or need. So they handle that for us. New sponsor for this year. A new sponsor for this year is Zollinger Racing Products. So we're using both their front and rear billet knuckles, and if you see their stuff, it's just absolutely beautiful. They work really well, obviously, but man, you look at them and they're just absolutely beautiful. So Zollinger is a new one that we brought on this year, and we're really happy to have that relationship. Fuel Safe. makes our custom fuel cell. So we made a custom fuel cell for this for the 4-seat race car. It's about a 40-gallon fuel cell. So we made the container and sent the container up to them, and they made all the internals and fuel pumps and everything. So they've been doing the fuel cells on all our cars since I've been racing. So, and we also were running with Bell helmets for this year. They were a new one that came on as well. So obviously Bell is pretty well known. And that's it. I know that's an exhaustive list, but each of them really brings something to the table for us.
Awesome. And one other quick highlight there was Pro Eagle Chuck Foreman. He's coming on the show. If everything goes as planned, he's going to be on the show. I believe it's next week. Let's see. Yeah, next week, Monday. So today is September 4th when we're recording. That will be September 9th. So excited to get him on the show and talk about a little bit about Pro Eagle and anything else he's got going on.
No, that's cool. That's cool. Like I say, the Pro Eagle jacks there's nothing else out there. He's really the only guy in town for a jack that's going to work for your UTV.
Yeah, when I ran into an issue where I needed a slightly taller jack, and actually still haven't solved this problem. But either way, that just reminded me of a stressful thing that I need to figure out. But no, I pulled out one of my old jacks. I was like, yeah, I'm going to go do this real quick. Blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is not going to work. And I quickly Googled, off-road jack or Jeep jack, and Pro Eagle came right up. And I was like, I at the time I didn't know that Chuck Foreman was associated with Pro Eagle, but I was Facebook friends with Chuck at the time, and I was like, oh my gosh, why did I not make this connection months ago? But either way, we got
it's a good one. And I think one of the things that maybe kind of a side note for the Pro Eagle jack is, and one of the reasons it was so great for us was my father-in-law was on a pit crew. He still is, but we got more guys. But early on, he was really doing pit crew stuff. So he was really struggling with trying to lift a regular jack that we were using. So the Pro Eagle jacks are just a lot lighter, and it's actually something that even my father-in-law can grab and lift and use in the races. So not only does it work well, but they're pretty lightweight.
Perfect. Well, at this point, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to thank the sponsors for this podcast, and we'll come right back in and start talking about some of the sponsorship tactics and strategies. Let's talk about AMSOIL. Maybe you've seen them at Sturgis or GNCC or the AMSOIL Championship Snowcross Series. They're all over the powersports world, and here's why. They get it. They're a bunch of gearheads, riders, and racers just like us. They're also chemists and engineers, which means they're good at making synthetic oil. Their time at the track and on the street lets them see firsthand how tough equipment is on oil. Extreme heat, increased stress, high RPM riding, it all works to sideline your ride. AMSOIL handcrafts synthetic lubricants that fight wear and resist extreme heat so you can get the most power and best performance out of whatever you ride. Visit AMSOIL.com/rider for details, and you can check out their full line of products for anything you ride.
Hey guys, George Hamill here to talk about SolderWeld's new off-road repair kit. If you're a racer of any type or an off-road enthusiast like myself, you're going to want to take a close look at this product that bonds metal on the spot. SolderWeld has combined some of their most elite products into one small kit that fits perfectly under your seat or strapped to a roll cage and allows you to make some insane fixes anywhere you go. How many of us have been in a race or out on the trail and got a rock chip in a radiator or brake line? We have seen a top-tier desert race team at the 2019 Min 400 taken out by a simple rock to the radiator. If they had an off-road repair kit on board, they could have been back up and running in just minutes. The kit includes everything you need to work on dirty aluminum, stainless steel, copper, and many other metals. SolderWeld's cutting-edge technology allows you to make these fixes with extremely low heat and incredibly high tensile strength, leaving you a lasting fix every time. Don't be that guy broke down on the side of the trail. Get your off-road repair kit today, and your friends will thank you.
Safety is our overriding priority. I hear it all the time, but I have to ask myself, is it though? Is that the first thing we think of? is that the first thing you think of? Over the past couple of years, we've seen the performance of production UTVs increase, somewhere around 350%. That means these machines give us a lot more opportunity to have fun and win races, but it also, unfortunately, gives us new opportunities to crash. And that's why we have partnered with Crash Addict Industries. The owner, Travis Pointer, became very accustomed to crashing early in his career. He saw it as inevitable, and he set out to make the process safer. With a passion for racing, welding, and engineering, Crash Addict Industries now produces full cage and other protection systems intentionally designed to protect you during an accident on the track. They also offer a line of human protection products through their vendors. Do this for me at this point. If you're racing with a stock cage right now, please go check out crashaddict.com and at least just see what they have to offer. Even if you choose to go with a different company, please make safety your overriding priority. When I stop to think about all the things that make motorsports awesome, I think of camaraderie, I think of speed, I think of friendship, and I also think of family. And it's hard to go through all of those elements without thinking of Bold Racing. Now, Bold Racing and Jimmy Moore, the owner, has been a long-time supporter of this show and Impact Fuel overall. Jimmy Moore is a desert racer that also has a ton of experience with suspension, UTV axles, and general go-fastness. I would love for you to head over to their Facebook page, Bold Racing, or their Instagram page, bold.racing, and just show them some love. Let them know that you support their race program and you want to see them continue to promote the amazing elements of motorsports. 2 questions I get continuously about this show and about sponsorship is, do I need my own website and do I need a resume? The answer is, in my opinion, yes to both, and that's why we partner with topthepodium.com. Now, if you want to see an example of what a professional website and what a professional resume looks like, you gotta check out topthepodium.com. They did my website. The Sponsored Rider Club Podcast website is sponsoredriderclubpodcast.com. That was created by Jeff Vanistall of topthepodium.com. I think it's awesome. I get a lot of good feedback about it. And there's a number of other websites out there that Jeff has produced that are just phenomenal. So I think it's important in this world of social media where you have control of your content. That's what a website does. It gives you full control. We don't know what Facebook's going to do sometimes. We don't know what Instagram's going to do. We don't know what Twitter's going to do. So if we don't have that central location to direct people and house our content, there is some risk that we incur. So I strongly recommend getting a website, talking to topthepodium.com. And then the resume, again, is massive. And if you want to stand out, get it done professionally. And honestly, it is one of the best ways to step up your game and present yourself in the best way possible. All right, well, welcome back, everybody. We are now in the main event, and that's where we dive into a lot more of these details about the sponsorship tactics and strategies. We touched on a few things there early on, but we're going to dive in deeper. But there is one thing, before I even get into that, any of the normal questions here, something I kind of want to highlight. I think you did it, and I thought it was awesome. You'll have to confirm if you did it or not. But so Can-Am, he says, one of your big sponsors. Which is awesome. But very early on in the interview, you were talking about when you got into UTVs, you said, I purchased a 4-seat UTV. And I was like, perfect. But I wanted to call it out because you didn't say any other brand, right? And at the time, I don't think it was a Can-Am that you bought. But like coming back into it, that was perfect because you didn't drop any other names. Like, I mean, I'm obviously messing it up right now because I'm highlighting it, but I want people to know that from a racer standpoint. Like, you could do that. You could say, yeah, I was running, I ran this one car and it had some tires on it. It was whatever. Now I'm running Maxxis tires, or now I'm running, GVC tires, or like STI tires. That I don't know. I thought that was a nice little touch there. It was pretty low key.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, and I'm always thinking about sponsors, and anything kind of I ever do that's race related. All of our sponsors are always on our mind for sure.
Mm-hmm. And I want people listening, like when you're listening to this show or other shows, pay attention to that. I probably should do a better job calling those little tidbits out, but there's a lot of good examples where people who are very conscious of that, they just naturally, boom, they got it, and they move on. It's you don't even notice it's happening. I mean, even with your comment about Pro Eagle, right? You're like, hey, guess what? They're super light, and then you gave me a story about it, right? And I'm not gonna forget that story now because I'm thinking, well, I've done some pitting before, and I've seen people struggle lifting up jacks. Like that makes sense to me. That this is one additional feature that I can connect with. So either way, I wanted people to like pay attention to those little subtle things. They're good. Good little tips. Okay.
Oh,
cool. So going back to the questions here, everybody knows, I think by now, if you've listened to the show more than once, I have an outline, and sometimes I actually follow the outline when we're going through these things. But I would love to know right now about a few like relationships that you've built with these sponsors and partners. Like, how do they even come to fruition? How did you even get this whole thing started?
I think, obviously for me, one of the things that was an advantage for me was that I had, although not right out of the gate, but pretty early on, I was able to get a monster sponsorship. So for me, that obviously opened a lot of doors. But I still had to walk through those doors and talk with the people. And, I think, my advice to people are asking me, hey, how do you go about sponsorships and what's your game plan? And I don't know that there's one right or wrong answer necessarily, but I can give you, at least for me, what the right answer for me is. First thing that we look at is we want to win races, and that is that's our number one priority. Is we want to compete and we want to get on the podium. So then, if we work backwards from that, we say what products are going to give us the best opportunity to be successful and win races. And then once we identify those products, then we seek out those companies. And, the being in Southern California, one of the nice things that we have is that a lot of the companies, I would have to go through the list, but, the list of sponsors that we went through, most of those companies are here in Southern California, if not in California. So there's an opportunity at races, or at the sand show, which I definitely want to talk about with you a little bit, is the sand show that's coming up. But a lot of the relationship started face to face. It wasn't via email, or you hear the dreaded stories about somebody dropping a DM into a sponsor saying, "Will you sponsor me?" But so that's really how the relationship started. It was a personal meeting. It wasn't a phone call. It was seeking them out and meeting them personally and starting a relationship with them.
Mm-hmm. We had already talked about, we want to make sure we hit at this at some point, and you just brought it up there, like the sand show piece. You want to dive into that now? We can hit that now.
Yeah, we can do that. I mean, I think from a UTV racing perspective, if you asked most of my sponsors what's their single biggest and most important event of the year, and they're going to tell you the sand show that's in Southern California. Not 100%, but the majority of them. So it's an important event for them, and almost all companies are there, and it's a great place. If you're looking for sponsors and you want to get yourself in front of them, go to the sand show, pay to get out to the sand show, spend 2 days, go up and meet the people, because the guys, 9 80% of the time, the guys making the sponsorship decisions are the ones there that are working their booths. Go up, spend time with them, introduce yourself, tell them about your racing program. And, you don't necessarily in that day say, hey, will you sponsor me? But that starts that relationship with them. And they're going to remember you, although they're meeting, 1,000 people or more. They might remember you, and then that's a way to start that relationship. So the Sand Show is a fantastic opportunity for someone to start making those relationships.
Yeah, certainly. I actually did a little recap of Vegas Reno, which if not been to the race before, the tech and contingency event the day before, there's a number of vendors there, nowhere near what you would see at like the Sand Show or SEMA or anything like that. But it's about like being face to face and having easy access to people. I mean, you could walk up to folks and sometimes they don't have anybody else in the booth even, and you're like, hey, can I talk to somebody about sponsorship? They're like, that guy right there, that girl right there, and you're just like there, you're in it. It's almost immediate sometimes, and that's a smaller example than what you just kind of described there. There's just a lot of opportunity, and sometimes you accidentally make connect. I mean, literally, once you get physically there, sometimes you accidentally make these connections.
Yeah, and that you bring up a really good example at the races in the tech and contingency. Same type of thing. It's much smaller than the Sand Show, but in general the decision makers are there, and it truly comes down to relationships. And I think, and we'll kind of segue in a little bit. I think some of the mistakes that some people that are thinking sponsors make, and I've heard this from a lot of the sponsors that I deal with, is the first thing on your mind when you engage with someone or a company that you're talking with is not, hey, this is what I want and this is what I need. That's so far down your list, or should be really far down on your list. What you really want to do is, what can I do for you? Let's take pick one of my sponsors. If we go to, Summers Brothers Axles, what can I do for you? I can race with your axles. I have this social media. I'm racing these races. We have these videos. Those are all the things that you first need to sell yourself on what you can provide. And then what you want to return, that comes in time, but it should be well down the list. And I think some people make the mistake of putting what they need first. And for the majority of those companies, it just doesn't work for them. Once they hear that, they just completely turn off.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, think about it as any relationship, right? If you're, approaching somebody, maybe it's a dating scenario, right? And you go up to them, you're like, look, this is what I need to happen tonight. Like, I need you to show me this, and this. Like, we got to have this good time. Like, the other person's done. They're done. They're already checked out, right? But if you go like, hey, what can I do to make your night enjoyable? Oh, okay. We got some conversation that can happen here. I mean, it's the same kind of deal. You gotta make that person feel like they're, the important one. And honestly, I mean, for anybody who's dealt with taking in sponsorship applications, sometimes you accidentally become that person. Like me, I accidentally get requests for me to sponsor people all the time. It can immediately get exhausting, like right away. Because most of the time these people want to help you, like they want to help everybody, and they just can't because it's, that's reality. You can only help a select number of people. But two, you just get so many of them. You're like, how many different ways can I say no to this? And it's exhausting. So you gotta think of that up front.
Yeah, and I think the other piece that I think is important, to think about is when you're also with a sponsor, and if you are telling a sponsor, look, here's the things that I'm going to do for you. I'm going to race, for us next year, it's 11 races. It's the Best in the Desert Series, and it's the Baja 500 and the Baja 1000. We'll do them at 400 in the UTV World Championship. So that's a lot of racing. But if I go to a sponsor and I tell them I'm going to be at those 11 races, you know what? I better be at those 11 races. Yeah, there's life things that happen, of course,
right,
that might change that. But I also hear stories where you know, somebody will come in, a driver, and they'll say, look, I'm going to do all these things. They pick up a sponsorship and then they disappear, and they don't hold up their end of the bargain. And, you know, so you might get that sponsorship for 1 year, but you're not going to have the long-term relationship. So when you commit to something that you're going to do, you absolutely have to follow through on it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and my advice is, if you get to a point where you can't follow through, like you said, life happens, let people know. Like,
yes,
don't let them figure out some other way. Reach out right away. Holy cow, you wouldn't believe what happened. It's probably, you know, this happened. It's probably going to end my season. Do you want to renegotiate this deal now, and just, or do you want to, like, tell me what I can do to help make the situation better, right? It's something.
Yeah.
Something.
You know, and it's you know, one of the things, or another thing I wanted to kind of cover with you was communication, and so an example of that in not being so. 2 years ago in 2016, in about March, April timeframe, my wife was diagnosed with breast cancer. She's beat it now and she's doing well, but at the time I didn't know what that was going to do to my racing schedule, because obviously my number one priority became my wife and her health and her treatment. But I immediately reached out to every one of my sponsors, told them what was going on, and said, look, I don't know what I'm going to be able to do and not do. I will be at every race that I absolutely can get. We ended up not missing any races. The treatment went well. My wife's an absolute just superstar, and she wouldn't let us miss races. But you know what? Every one of my sponsors wrote back, no problem.
Oh, yeah.
When I talked to them, they said, no problem. You take care of what you need to take care of. We will be here when you come back.
Right.
And, you know, that was communicating with them. I could have easily just not said anything and not shown up. But I took the time to communicate them. And if I look at, you know, the list of sponsors that I had here, you know, I had 23 sponsors that we had just listed. I have talked either via phone or via email over the last 30 days with 20 of the 23. Mm-hmm. So you want to stay in constant communication with them. It's really important that you're not that guy that, you know, once you get a sponsorship, you're not that person that disappears. You've got to keep communicating with them.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's a very good point. Well, that was great. I tell everybody at the beginning of these shows, like, it's okay if we don't hit the outline because, you know, the conversation flows. And that was flowing good there. And we covered a lot of stuff that we kind of wanted to hit on anyways. But one thing that I was curious about is, you know, if you've had an opportunity, I don't know if opportunity is the right word, but if you've encountered a time when things didn't go well with a sponsor, and, like, how did you handle that? I mean, you kind of gave us an example just now where you weren't able to, or you didn't think you were going to be able to meet some of the race commitments, but, like, have you run into another thing where maybe you've had to separate with somebody or the deal didn't go exactly the way as planned? We don't need to get into names or anything, but
yeah, early on, actually in my first season racing, I had a sponsor that called me one evening and said, hey, we don't think we're getting out of this what we're putting into it. And you know, I was a little surprised, or more than anything, I was disappointed, because the last thing I ever wanted to do was to disappoint a sponsor. But the more I dug in, you know, they were more concerned, not necessarily on the racing side, but they were more concerned on the promotion side of things. And, you know, I'd made some commitments to them that I didn't communicate to them were happening. Things like my car, again, I understand that being sponsored by Monster and working at Monster definitely, makes it easier to do certain things. But that year I had the car displayed at Supercross. But I didn't communicate to this specific sponsor that the car was there. So there were all these things I was actually doing, but they didn't know about it because I wasn't communicating to them that I was doing it. So it was a really good lesson early on about, what I mentioned before is communicating with the sponsors and letting them know what's going on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with just recapping what you did. But it's hard to remember that because even with social media, honestly, sometimes you have to remind folks that, hey, we are tagging you on every post because it, especially if at a bigger company, the person doing the social media might not be the person that you're working with for your race program contract, and they might not be talking, or they just don't see it because it's just a sheer volume of stuff that they see, and they're not sure, right? Sometimes you're just not sure what's going on. So yeah, highlighting those things is great. I mean, one of the things that I actually started doing with this show as like a lessons learned, and now even as I'm thinking of it, there's 100 ways I could do it better. But I send out a recap every month of just general performance. Like, here's what happened, and it's to all my sponsors. Here's the downloads that we got, and here's some of the Facebook Live views and blah blah blah. And I say, here's some things I did this month that I felt like worked. Here's some things that didn't work. And even just that alone, I mean, it's like one little connection point, but I guaranteed now have that one little connection point. And I would encourage people to do something similar. I mean, I would encourage them to do it where they're highlighting, yeah, I was at this event, and yeah, I think there was like 20,000 people there or 10,000 people there. And I think that's helpful.
Yeah, it's my opinion is that it's really important to let them know what you're doing, but at the same time, you've got to do stuff. You can't just sit back.
Yeah.
I think, if I go back to my motorcycle days, it was more, win on Sunday, sell on Monday was the thing, and you waited for magazine articles to come out. So it was a different time, but now you can't just sit back. If there's very few people, if any, that can sit back today and just race and think that that's going to be enough, because right, wrong, or indifferent, if you might like it or you might not, but the racing to a certain extent is becoming less important, and the marketing side of things is becoming more important. Not 100%, because you still have to do well, and you still need to be, competitive, and we still want to win every race. And look, that's the most important. I can tell you that's extremely important to Monster and Can-Am for sure. Is that we win races, but not far behind is all the things that you do to market these guys, to market your partners. And it's not easy. It's beyond a full-time job. It really is a lot of work.
Oh yeah, definitely. So this might be an opportunity to talk a little bit about your recent post Vegas Reno activities. But my question is really, is there something unique that you've done to promote your sponsors? But a twist on that might be like, what's something you've done that was a little bit like, a big effort that, had big wins for the sponsors too, that people might not have noticed, or people might not know behind the scenes how much effort that really took.
Yeah, sure. So, one, I have a full-time plus job. Work really hard and a lot here at Monster. So the racing thing is purely, something that I do, and all my crew guys have full-time jobs. So this is something we do on the side. I don't have any paid mechanics. I don't have any employees. We're truly volunteers, and we do this on the side. But Monster had come to me the week of Vegas to Reno, I think, and said, "Hey, is your car available to go to Vegas to go to?" We were having a big monster sales meeting in Vegas. They said, "We would love to display your car." And my first answer is invariably, "Yeah, absolutely." And then as soon as I had said that, I'm trying to think, well, shoot, how am I going to make this happen? We're racing Vegas to Reno, and I knew I was going out of town the week after Vegas to Reno. So I called a couple of my crew guys and said, "Hey, here's the story. Can you help?" And they said, "Yeah, what do we need to do?" So we had a separate set of A-arms and trailing arms, so suspension, that weren't looking too great. So we immediately got those to the sandblaster and got those powder coated, got the radius rods powder coated as well. So I had a good fresh set of suspension that was sitting waiting at home. And the guy said, "Look, we raced Friday night, and, as we said, we had our problems, but ended up finishing at, 2:30 in the morning. We went to Carson City, slept a few hours, drove all the way home on Saturday, and we got to Sunday and we completely redid the car, put arms on, basically did a complete race prep on it, detailed it, got it looking good. They went home. I drove that Sunday night and dropped the car off at the company that does our wraps. I had already set an appointment with them and told them what was going on, so they did a complete rewrap on the car on Monday. I actually flew out of town. I was gone from Monday through that following Sunday. But the guys picked up the car from the wrap. It took them a couple of days. In between that, I got a call from Torco, who said, "Hey, we're going to this off-road nights show in Paris on that Saturday night. Can we have the car?" And again, it's like, "Yeah, absolutely." So I called my guys, we need to switch some things around. We got to get the car out there. So we got the car to Torco, and they took it out to the off-road nights show, which was the Saturday 1 week later. It went there. It won best first car at the show, so we were pretty happy about that. I got back into town Sunday at about 6 o'clock, and I loaded up the car and the trailer, and I drove to Vegas myself, and got there about it was really bad traffic. Got there at 2:30 in the morning. Parked, slept for 3 hours, and the load-in the casino was at 5:30 in the morning. So, that was something that was just important. It was important for me, Monster Ass, and we just made it happen. And, these are the things that I don't know that people realize, that how hard you have to work and how important it is to make these things happen. I could have easily just said, "No, you know what, I just can't make it happen," and they would have gotten someone else's car, but then they're going to remember the next time that you couldn't make it happen. So I always do whatever we can do to make it happen.
No, that's perfect. Yeah, I'm glad you shared that story too, because it's just those things you don't see. I mean, a lot of times you'll see the car, right, on display somewhere, like, "Oh, that's cool," but you're like, "How the heck did they get it here?" You don't think about that all the time. Or what happened to it before it got here? What blood, sweat, and tears went into even prepping it to come sit here at this area. And I thought that was a pretty neat one, especially you and I had talked about this a little bit in the pre-interview, like that the vehicle was visibly presentable after a pretty aggressive race, right? And it took a lot. I mean, we spent it took us, we started at about 6 a.m. on Sunday, and we finished about 7 o'clock at night. I mean, it was a full day turn on that car to get it down, to get the new wrap on it. But it was something that it's important, and I my advice to anybody that has sponsors,
you do everything possible to make that happen. And if they ask and need something from you, there's certain things you just can't do. I mean, life comes up and you can't do, but if there's anything you can do, you got to make it happen for them.
Yep, definitely. Well, that's good stuff. I think we could talk about this forever. But I'm going to move on to kind of wrap things up at the finish line here. And this one question that I ask to kind of close out these interviews, and that's, if people were listening to this and they forgot 98% of what we talked about, what's that 2%? What's that one real big takeaway that they just can't forget? What's the thing they need to remember?
They need to remember, I think if I'm giving advice to anyone is, you need to honor your commitments. If you are lucky enough to get sponsorships, you absolutely deliver for them on everything that you can do, and you go above and beyond, and you want to go above and beyond the next guy. So, really make yourself stand out for the other people that they're sponsoring, and really you want to make yourself invaluable. You really, it's just whatever it takes, whether it's taking cars to shows, I know there's UTV shows all over the place, whether getting your car there, calling your sponsors, asking them if they can use your car, if they want your car for the sand show, if they want your car for UT Invasion that I think is in Idaho or Oregon or whatever it might be. Just, communicate with your sponsors and do everything you can to help them succeed, because they'll in turn, give you the support that you need.
Yeah, perfect. Awesome. Well, what's the best way for people listening to connect with you?
Really, Instagram is 1948 Monster Matt, and then it's just Matt Burroughs on Facebook, and those are, you can start there, and then we have a link to YouTube from there. But we're big on making as much content as we can. I'll give you kind of another thing that maybe you'll agree with, but or not. But I was told a week or two ago, I was at a marketing convention, and I said that everything now is pushing to content, and that you've got to make content. And so that's what we're doing. And it might seem really trivial or silly to you that you're going out for a test day. Why do I need to go out and video that? Because they need content, and that's really where we're heading, is just you need content, and just make content, give it to your sponsors, and if they want to use it, great, but supply them with content of what you're doing. And that's I'm told where we're heading 100%, and that's going to be 100% content in the future.
Yeah, I completely agree. And one recommendation I'd have, at least give it a shot, is create a Google Drive account or Dropbox or some sort of file sharing thing. Put your content on there and share it with your sponsors. So if you're out racing somewhere and you got a couple of good shots of the tires and you want to share it with your tire sponsor, take those pictures, upload it to your Drive, share the link with them. That way you're not filling up email inboxes, or a lot of people I know send pictures via text message or direct message, or post them up on Facebook or Instagram or something. But the resolution of the images a lot of times is compressed when you do that, and then they're no longer as usable. So that their sponsors are going to be hesitant to repost them or put them in different types of content. So I highly recommend doing that. Share the link. They can use it. They don't have to use it, and you can add more stuff to that same link later. It's awesome. I know people do that with me for the show.
Yeah, it's crazy that you brought that up, because literally this week I had 4 sponsors for different reasons ask me for high-res photos, and I literally sent them the link to the Dropbox with everything in it. Mm-hmm. And each one said, wow, this is awesome. Mm-hmm. So it's funny you bring that up. But yeah, we put everything into a Dropbox form, and they ask for something, boom, it's right there, and they have everything.
Yeah, I think it's huge. If you're not doing that now, it's pretty simple to set up. Go Google it and make it happen.
Yeah.
All right, Well, I really appreciate you taking the time to chat. Like I said before, I think we could probably go on forever. But, at this point, we're going to kind of close things out, and I'll leave it at this. Have fun and ride safe.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Sponsored Rider Club podcast, which is powered by 4 Wheel Parts. I want you to make sure that you are subscribed to this show, whether it's on iTunes or Google Play or Stitcher or wherever you listen to podcasts. Hit that subscribe button so you don't miss upcoming guests and upcoming episodes. And then follow us on social media. We're on all of the platforms. You can find out the most content, though, on our Facebook page. That's where we do our live videos. To get some insider access to upcoming guests, you can also check out the Sponsored Rider Club on Facebook. It is a support network where you can ask questions about best practices and get feedback from our audience. A special thanks goes out to our sponsors, 4 Wheel Parts, AMSOIL, SolderWeld, Bold Racing, TopThePodium.com, and Crash Addict Industries. And I also want to shout out some of our other partners, MBRP, HMK USA, Studboy Traction, and High Octane Coffee. I look forward to serving you again next week. Until then, have fun and ride safe.